Well, we've got one of the channels, indeed one of the world's favourite doctors, back with us, Dr. Sunil Dhand. Sunil, thank you so much for coming back.
John, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you again.
Now, I think the reason your internet, your YouTube work has really taken off, Sunil, and I think it has, is because you're asking fundamental questions that relate to everyone's health. And one of the biggest issues that you've talked about, and it's influenced my thinking a lot, is insulin resistance. So what do we mean by insulin resistance? I mean, I know about insulin as a hormone. It's produced in the pancreas and it lowers blood sugar levels. But what is insulin resistance and why does it matter?
Well, what a question, John. And indeed, we will go back right to the beginning, and I will pretend that you're someone who doesn't even know anything about insulin or what's going on with health. I know that you know the fundamentals, but this is for anybody watching, because I am not exaggerating by any stretch of the imagination when I say that this is the biggest and most devastating pandemic the world has ever seen. Yep. Insulin resistance. It is all around us at unprecedented levels. And we will go over in this discussion what it is and how people can go about thinking about it, diagnosing it and reversing it. But let's start with what it is, because many people watching may have heard the term insulin resistance, most commonly associated with pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. The issue is, and we'll come to this in a moment, insulin resistance has actually been occurring for years, sometimes decades, before the tests that the medical establishment uses, like fasting glucose and HbA1c, start to go up. The problem with insulin resistance is it's not just about diabetes, it is about a whole host, a plethora of medical conditions, ranging from heart disease, autoimmune disease, even cancer. And if we're talking about everyday diseases, there is an intrinsic link. In fact, I would say it is the number one cause. It's not 100% of the time the cause, but the vast majority of the time, the cause for high blood pressure and high cholesterol. Yeah. So basically, too much insulin is circulating in the systems of, I would say, well over 70 to 75% of everybody around us in the United States and United Kingdom. So it's so important that the medical establishment talks about this, keeps on pushing for natural reversal, and that the general public understand this as well.
So what strikes me there, this is sort of an amazing aspect of human physiology, really, isn't it? When sugar starts to go up in the blood, that's detected by the pancreas. The pancreas produces more insulin and it's able to compensate. So basically, someone can be developing insulin resistance. The insulin's not doing its job properly because the insulin receptors are getting... So if you eat more and more sugar, you make more and more insulin. And these poor old insulin receptors, because the insulin levels are high, I guess we could say we're hyperinsulinemic, is going bang, 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 bang. And it's wearing out these receptors. So the insulin receptors are no longer working properly. And to get the effects that we need the insulin and the receptors. But because the receptors are going off a bit, brilliantly, the body compensates by producing more insulin, which is really quite amazing. But that's doing, the higher the insulin levels, presumably that's accelerating the bang, bang, bang on the insulin receptors, is it?
That's right, yes. You nailed a few key points there. So if we go back, say, a generation or two, the way that people used to eat, our ancestors, they used to eat firstly in moderation. They didn't eat insane quantities. Unfortunately, let's be blunt, like people are eating now. Yep. They ate moderate amounts of carbs and sugar. So it's very important that we remember when it comes to insulin, this is the hormone secreted by the pancreas to basically lower blood sugar. Yep. Blood sugar is so toxic to the body that we only have about a teaspoon of sugar in our bloodstream. Anything more than that and cells start to get damaged. So carbohydrates, so we're talking about bread, rice, pasta, junk foods, pure sugars in snacks, etc., chocolates, cakes, they initially, as soon as we eat anything which contains carbs or sugars, our body immediately, and I'm going to try to simplify things as much as I can, kicks in a response to urgently lower the blood sugar, bring it under control. Yeah. So we go back a couple of generations, and during, say, a 24-hour period, the average person may have had an insulin spike, and maybe just another small one. But now, unfortunately, with what I term toxic modern mainstream culture, and the fact that sadly so many people have let go of their health, and other things I accept come into this as well, like mental health, spiritual health. And you compare society now to even 20 years ago. I mean, it doesn't take Einstein. Look around, and I know the UK is not far off the US. I come back to the UK regularly, and it's probably at the same levels now in terms of people sadly letting go of their health, getting into poor lifestyle habits. So these insulin spikes from constant snacking, huge amounts of carbs and sugars during the day are happening all the time. Yeah. Okay? And the problem, and this could apply to many sort of physiological engineering systems, is when you have too much of something, resistance develops. Yeah. So you take all the cells in your body, in organs like the liver, in muscles, that's another big one. Yeah. If you are consuming a moderate diet, having a good lifestyle, they will all be sensitive to insulin. So as soon as you consume your carbs or sugars, your body has no trouble in getting the glucose into cells, the insulin receptors on the cells work. Problem is, when you overwhelm any system, and in this case we're talking about the body, you get a vicious circle where you have too much insulin being secreted. The cells are becoming resistant to it. Yeah. They can't, and again, I'm simplifying this as much as possible, they can't take in any more glucose. The glucose in the blood starts to go up, and that triggers a vicious circle where more insulin is secreted. And the problem with this is that insulin is the fat storage pro-inflammatory hormone. If you have too much of it circulating in your body, it is going to cause immense problems, ranging from very obviously weight gain, first and foremost, because it's a fat storage hormone, and those carbohydrates get converted into fatty acids via a process called de novo lipogenesis. That's getting very scientific about it. But if anyone simply wants to think, if you are overwhelming, if you're pummeling your body with carbs, your insulin levels go up by a very significant degree. All this insulin is circulating, and it's going to make you gain weight. It's going to make fat loss very difficult. It's going to stimulate more hunger, and it's going to cause a lot of inflammation and lead to an array of other illnesses. Even cancer has a strong association with insulin resistance. People are not talking about that enough.
So basically, we're getting, what we're doing in England really is we'll monitor people's blood sugar levels, and then we'll say, oh, your blood sugar level's gone up, so your HbA1c, your glycosylated hemoglobin, might go up. And we'll say, oh, you're probably getting a bit pre-diabetic. But what you're saying is that's 10 years down the disease process. We should have picked this up 10 years ago, because the fact that the blood sugar is starting to go up means that the increased insulin mechanisms are no longer able to compensate. So we're horrendously late to the party.
That's a good way of putting it, indeed, John. I like that one. Too late to the party. And the medical establishment, if I can be blunt again, is completely ignorant on this issue. So by the time HbA1c or fasting glucose comes up, the dam has already essentially burst. So I would liken this to supposing you have a dam. Let's take the Hoover Dam, which everyone knows in the United States. Yep. And you have a philosophy, engineers had a philosophy, that they would only fix it when water is starting to leak through. Can you imagine any engineer thinking like that? But that's what we do with insulin resistance. By the time the HbA1c or fasting glucose starts to go up, it's already at a point where significant damage has been done. And I'm a huge proponent, and I believe the medical establishment will eventually do this. They're probably 15 years behind, checking a fasting insulin level. So a fasting insulin level, which is not widely done, some institutions will do it, can be checked at the same time as a fasting glucose. And from that, there is a calculation. People can go online and plug it into an online calculator in their country, and you get something called a HOMA-IR, HOMA-IR. That number should be as close to 1 as possible, which indicates you are insulin sensitive. When it starts to get up towards 2 and above, it indicates significant insulin resistance, and also eventually it will coincide with full-blown type 2 diabetes. The reason why this is so important, and something I see every single day, is that millions upon millions of patients, usually who are overweight, who are doing the wrong thing, this is in the USA and UK, are having their HbA1c checked or their fasting glucose, and their doctor is actually telling them, you're okay, your HbA1c is fine. If you check the fasting insulin and HOMA-IR, it will be through the roof.
Yeah.
That is because the dam is bursting.
Yeah.
And this can be picked up years before if only the medical establishment was invested in this process.
So HOMA, H-O-M-A.
HOMA.
Yeah. What does that test look for?
IR.
I assume that's looking for insulin levels and other things as well?
So the HOMA-IR is a calculation.
Yeah.
And it stands for homeostatic model assessment of insulin resistance. So
Right.
basically, it takes the fasting insulin and fasting glucose, and there's a calculation you can do. Online calculators now make it very easy. And if you get those measured at the same time, you can calculate your HOMA-IR. And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to who come to me and say, oh, our doctor said we're fine. And I'm looking at them thinking, you're not fine, you have excess body fat, you're clearly heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And then I will test a HOMA-IR and it will be significantly elevated, even though their HbA1c or fasting glucose is normal.
So if you find the HOMA-IR is 1 or 2 or higher than 1, that's pathological. That shows that insulin resistance is developing.
Well, it should be as close to 1 as possible.
Yeah.
Even if it's 1.4, 1.5, you're still okay. The point is that millions of people have a HOMA-IR level above 2.
And that's what you're finding in your practice, 2 point something or higher?
Oh, all the time. Sometimes it's 3 or 4.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will tell you years before. And if the medical establishment was actually doing this, they could tell people years in advance, you're on the wrong track, reverse the situation naturally. And I don't live in fantasy land. I know we'll come to natural reversal in a moment, but I know that a lot of people won't follow up with lifestyle advice, but I think a significant percentage would if the medical establishment was sincerely pushing that advice, that this is a huge problem for you, you're inflamed, you're at an increased risk of more disease, you need to do something about this ASAP.
So is it a very expensive test to test for serum insulin? I mean, why isn't it, what you've said is so obvious. We can detect 5-10 years ahead of time if the body's overcompensating with excess insulin production. I mean, why aren't we testing for this? Do the biochemists say, no, this is $1,000 test or something? I mean, what's the problem?
It's not a particularly expensive test. And I expect if it's done more, the price will come down. It is simply, in my opinion, that the medical establishment, and this is a repetitive pattern throughout history, John, you already know this, is very slow and they are very robotic. They will do whatever their authorities tell them to do. And they often do things because it's the way things have always been done. And some of this you can say is human nature, but I do think that doctors should try to be above the very basic flawed nature of how systems operate and be encouraged to be independent thinkers, critical thinkers. I simply think, to answer your question, that doctors haven't been taught this and there isn't a push from the medical authorities to make this a priority, even though it's all around us.
So really, anyone who looks, well, what you and me would call a bit suspicious, so, it may be someone who's middle-aged or older, someone who's put on weight, someone who's a bit unfit, the suspicion should automatically think, that person's a bit overweight, they're underactive, the diet's not very good, they may well, in fact, they probably are insulin resistant. Let's check for insulin levels and see if their insulin levels are higher to compensate, even if the blood sugar hasn't started to rise yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And this can be done with observation. Back in the day, people would look around and say, well, you are, FAT, you have a problem. And these things were all known. When you were growing up, John, this was all common sense. But the world has gone a little bit insane over the last 20 years in particular.
And it was more openly discussed.
Exactly. And now it's like, you can't use certain words. And I'm not suggesting shaming people. I want to approach this with empathy. No. But to be honest, when I look around, I mean, firstly, as a doctor who wants people to be well, I feel quite depressed nowadays when I go out to shopping malls, airports. I will walk around public spaces and you look at the obesity levels, when I look at somebody who's overweight,
Yeah.
I don't look at it cosmetically.
No.
I'm just very sad for them, especially now it's happening at a young age. I mean, this is unprecedented. We are seeing a situation now where millions of adolescents are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, so they've already gone so far advanced. But when I look at someone who's obviously out of shape, the first thing that goes through my mind as a doctor is, oh, that's very sad. They are insulin resistant, they're inflamed, they are going to have physical problems, and their mental health. I mean, the brain is part of the body. The brain is going to be inflamed too. And your life would be so much better if you made this an absolute priority, reversing your insulin resistance. But sadly, that's not the culture that we live in right now. To be promoting that, I hope things will change.
And are you seeing this in younger people in your own practice as well as, I mean, we normally think of type 2 diabetes as well, we call it late onset diabetes, or we did. I mean, are you seeing this in younger people now as well?
Well, if only it was still late onset. I mean, even when I was in medical school, it was fairly rare. Something has gone drastically wrong. So now it's one of the number one diseases being diagnosed. And you look statistically now, so almost 2 in 10 of the population of the United States is officially type 2 diabetic. You have 1 in 3 with the official diagnosis of pre-diabetes. And estimates suggest, and certainly this is in line with my research and thinking, probably well over 70 to 75% of the USA is insulin resistant. It used to be well under 20%. And we are seeing an explosion in adolescents being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I read one statistic of 40% are already there. This has dramatically accelerated since the pandemic. And you only need to look around you to see what's happened. And yes, to be blunt again, it correlates with people being out of shape. It's almost guaranteed. Now, again, nothing is 100% in medicine or science, but it's almost guaranteed. If especially a young person is overweight, their body has already become overwhelmed and their cells are struggling with blood sugar management, you can pretty much guarantee that they will be insulin resistant.
I would like to prevent insulin resistance in myself. What advice could you give me to prevent me from becoming insulin resistant?
That is a fantastic question. Well, firstly, a philosophy that I have is that for most people nowadays, their journey towards better health should be thought of as a journey towards becoming more insulin sensitive.
Yes.
And no matter who you are, you can become more insulin sensitive. There's always things anybody could do. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. But in a nutshell, I mean, let's take a classic example, which probably isn't you because I met you before. You're in good shape. But if we were to
not
take,
as good
say,
as I'd like to be, but yeah.
yeah, the average, say, middle-aged man, let's use that as an example. That's a big category of people that I work with who has lost control of their health over the years. The gut has crept in. They've got that dad bod, which I think should not be a term of endearment. No. Basically, belly fat, especially on a man, means that you've got visceral fat around the organs and you have insulin resistance, inflammation, and disease risk. So absolutely, if somebody came to me and said, make this, I want to do something about it, what I would say is you would focus on certain fundamentals, which we can go over one by one and then discuss. But the first one, very obviously, is diet. Focus on nutrition. 80% of your health is going to be on your plate. So you are probably consuming way too many junk foods, carbohydrates, and sugars, as we've already discussed. But be mindful of this. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect and cut back to zero. But what you should generally aim to do is minimize carbs and optimize protein intake. Most people out there are not getting enough protein. For most people, a bare minimum should be 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So 75 kilogram person should be getting 75 grams of protein, bare minimum. I would rather it was over 100. But that's a good starting point. And basically every time you eat a meal, think, have I optimized protein and am I minimizing carbs? Can I cut back a bit on the bread, the pasta, the rice? You can go in small increments. And every time you snack as well, you could do the same thing. Instead of grabbing a packet of crisps, chips, or a candy bar, go for, say, a Greek yogurt, which is higher in protein. But if you adopt that mindset, that's a very good start. a great rule for a plate of food for a meal would be half protein, half antioxidants. What I mean by antioxidants would be colorful vegetables.
Yep.
That's a great place to start. I do think that tracking calories is a great idea. Now, there is some debate in the online community about this, but I think most people out there nowadays, when you actually show them the amount of calories they're eating, it's utterly unthinkable. People are consuming way more calories than they need. And it's really easy nowadays with a lot of apps that you can download on your phone. My favorite is called MyFitnessPal, MyFitnessPal. And you can put in a matter of seconds your meal, the approximate amount, and it will tell you your macros, how many proteins, how much protein, fat, and carbs you're eating, and the calorie count. And you can view that at the end of every day.
Well, I think diaries are a really good idea. Alcohol, for example. I've asked my students to track their alcohol consumption, and many of them are really quite taken aback. They didn't realise how high it was. And I've done that personally. Don't really drink much now, but you would write down how many units you drink, and at the end of the week, it's surprising how it can it can add up really quickly. So I think diaries are a really good way to introduce self-awareness, because people drift into these behaviours. People don't wake. You don't wake up one morning thinking, what I do? I think I'll take an appalling ultra-processed diet from now on. It's convenience, it's drifting, it's lack of realisation. I think that's a great idea.
It is, yeah, absolutely. People unfortunately are trapped with modern mainstream culture, and you raised a great point there. Alcohol, beverages. A lot of people are drinking sodas. That should be on your tracker as well.
Definitely.
And obviously, what you also should be doing, this goes without saying, is eating real whole food, not food which comes in packets with ingredient labels that you read and you don't even recognize the ingredients. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. I always tell people, and people that I've worked with give me that feedback, once you get into the habit of actually looking at ingredient labels, you realize that it's total and utter, for want of a better word, crap that you're pouring into your body. Why would you want to do that? Try to cook from scratch as much as possible. Another really important thing with diet, anyone who's on a journey of becoming more insulin sensitive, I would highly advise a mode of time-restricted eating, also known as intermittent fasting. It is superb for body fat loss and keeping your insulin levels low. So go gradually, don't have any shock to the body. But I have seen a lot of success, people who have a 6 to 8 hour eating window. So first meal around, say, 11 or 12, last meal around 6 or 7. And what that will mean is for most of the day, you're in a fasted state and your insulin levels are being kept low. And that gives you a great chance, your body, a big chance to heal.
And for the times you are hungry with that type of regime, it's much more tolerable, because you might be a bit hungry, then you go to sleep usually. And I know some people can't go to sleep when they're hungry, but you do get over that. You do get used to it. And your body does adapt to this sort of time-restricted pattern. And I think it's important to mention with proteins as well, Sunil. We're not just talking, well, obviously we're talking animal products, so meat, egg, fish, high in proteins, but also all the vegetable sources of protein, which are excellent. All the legumes, the peas, beans, lentils, all the nuts, all very high in protein. And they're providing micronutrients and fibre as well to support the microbiome. So it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, beans, legumes, I'm a huge fan of them myself. And you have to sometimes be a bit careful because they do contain starch and carbs. But generally, as long as it's in moderation, you will be okay with it. I find over 90% of people that I talk to, interact with, they are not consuming enough protein. And protein has other benefits too. It helps you to feel more full compared to carbs or junk food, where you have where you feel like you're full for a tiny amount of time, then you have a desire and more cravings again. Protein also helps with fueling muscle, which we'll come to in a moment as well. But if you can throw in time-restricted eating, get into that habit while monitoring your total intake, cutting back on the likely significant amounts of food that you're eating, it really can result in transformation. I mean, I work with people who feel better literally within a week or two, because so many people don't realize what they're doing. I have my own method, my own program, which people are free to go to my website to check out, where It's unbelievable. People will give me feedback and say, we've realized that we have a problem. We are committed to this journey, and we're going to go on this journey of becoming more insulin sensitive. And most importantly, we're doing it entirely naturally, which is always the best way. But people listening shouldn't underestimate. If you're one of these people that's stuck, you've got into bad habits, don't underestimate. Once you do all of these things, and we'll come to the other pillars shortly, your mental health will literally transform. Your body is yearning to heal, yearning to become more insulin sensitive. It's just that millions of people are sadly stuck right now, and they are surrounded with all of the wrong things. I mean, you look at any ad on TV, modern mainstream culture, don't underestimate. If you are surrounded with people who have bad habits, that's going to keep taking you in the wrong direction as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So diet 80%. What would we go on to next, Sunil, after that?
Yeah, next up we will, no surprise, focus on movement, exercise. That is absolutely key. And a few broad principles to remember. Cardio mixed with strength training. This doesn't mean becoming a bodybuilder. Even just light dumbbell exercises, 20 minutes, 3 times a week can bring significant benefits, because as you build up a little bit of muscle mass and get stronger, you will also be increasing your physiologically active tissue, which helps your journey towards becoming more insulin sensitive. And I find this is something that most people who could be doing are not doing as well. My own personal rule, if you can do it, 1 hour a day, no excuses, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's a brisk walk in nature, whether it's your workout with dumbbells at home. It's only 4% of your day. And a lot of people I speak to are very busy, and they think, how could I do 1 hour a day? Well, firstly, again, it's only 4% of your day, but also it's not about that 1 hour. It's about everything else that happens in the remaining 23. You have more focus, clarity, you have a mood boost. Many people find they're more productive. They sleep better at night. Exercise is truly life-changing once you make it a non-negotiable part of your life. And Personally, I work out in the gym, hour every day. I have my own routine, and something else I'd recommend is people, if they're doing strength training, alternate your upper with your lower body and core, and that's all. Those are all technicalities. The main thing is, if you aren't moving around enough now and you aren't lifting even light weights, this is an easy win for you, and don't underestimate what it's going to do for other aspects of your life as well. If you commit to moving more, if you're not doing anything right now, simply walk. Okay, that would be a good start. Most people are not walking enough. If you walk, especially after meals, that can really help you to not only burn calories, but you also are becoming more insulin sensitive as you do so.
And getting outside is I just find getting outside therapeutic in itself. So age-specific, fitness-specific programs start very gradually, but get outside, do some walking, and whatever's possible for you as an individual, and build on from. There's always a fitness gap. I think, whatever age you're at, there's how fit you could be, or whatever age you're at with whatever medical conditions, how fit you could be and how fit you actually are. So it's a matter of maximising your personal potential and doing what's right for you as an individual.
Yeah, that's so true. Apart from maybe the most elite athlete, everybody can improve in this realm. And again, it's your journey and committing to it and saying, this is my number one priority in life, which, as far as I'm concerned, it should be. Nothing should come before your health. And you should remember that every time you say no to the bread, every time you say, I'm going to fast for an hour longer, every time you say, no, I don't feel like it. This is part of the, obviously, when I'm motivating people as well, these are my lines that I use because I believe in them myself. It's those moments, John, where you feel like not doing something, where you can overcome that. Not only is that the highest level of being, but that is going to bring you success. So it's those moments where you're, I just want to sit on the couch and watch TV. If you can say, no, I'm going to get up and move because I know I'm going to feel better and it's going to do a lot for my health. If you have a consistent number of those moments, that is what is going to accelerate you towards better health.
And the little victories are really encouraging, aren't they? So every time you can manage that, miss that slice of toast or biscuit and maybe have some pumpkin seeds or something, something instead. And And these things do become habit. You do get a good habit, and your palate is sensitized as well. When you eat less carbs and less sugar, if I go out for a meal now, I sometimes have a sweet, and I basically can't do it anymore because I'm so used to lower sugar foods at home. I just find it sickly. It's just too much sugar. You re-educate your palate. It's a process to do that.
I agree. That is such a good point.
Is your third pillar? I can think of several I would go for next. What are you going to go for as your third one?
So my third pillar is stress.
Okay, right.
Yep, stress management. So
yep.
I've seen a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people.
I struggle with that one. I think a lot of people do.
It is ubiquitous all around us. I've seen a lot of people who are doing everything right with their diet, their exercise, but they are overwhelmingly stressed, and that is impairing their health journey, whether it's holistically losing body fat, whether it's improving markers like their blood pressure and other inflammatory markers. So why this is an issue, John? So if we back up a little bit, stress is there for a reason. Yep. Obviously, the goal is not a stress-free life. That's impossible and would probably also be boring for anybody who's slightly motivated. Yeah. The problem is that stress, the initial stress reaction was designed as a fight or flight response for good reason. Yeah. Where we came from, we faced a stress and we urgently had to either fight the stress or run away fast to simply survive. The problem with modern day living is that those stress hormones, which are primarily cortisol and adrenaline, are consistently elevated because people have these ongoing low-level stresses, whether it's to do with work, family life, what's happening in the world, which is a really bad one to have as your stress. We'll come to that in a moment. Yeah. But the problem with these ongoing stresses is that they are destroying your body. They're also directly elevating your blood sugars, which, as we said at the beginning, is going to destroy you. So I know very well that this is something which is easier said than done. It's very easy for any doctor or coach to say, work on stress. Yeah. But the question is, how does anybody do that? So I always emphasize that this is something highly unique to you, and go for the small wins again. So every little thing you can do during the day to lower those cortisol levels and take your mind to a better place, whether it's meditation, whether it's an exercise session, that works for me. An hour at the gym will make me feel less stressed instantly. Yep. Whether it's a walk in nature, whether it's a warm bath, whether it's a comedy show, whether it's spending time with your family, have an acute awareness that everything you do, even if it's for 30 minutes, is going to help you to lower your stress levels. And then long term, you can think about other things. Do you have to make a change in your career? Do you have to do something different with any other aspect of your life? Those are not easy problems to solve, but you can get some small wins by at least doing something every day that makes you feel a bit better and takes your mind to a better place.
Yep. So it's thinking about the long-term strategies. I mean, I've noticed this more as life goes on. You know, when you're younger, you think, oh, I'll take that on and I'll take something else on. But now I try and anticipate. I think, well, you know, if I do that, there's an element of risk associated with that, and that could be stressful. So I guess you become more risk averse as you get older. Once you've made the mistakes that cause ongoing stressful situations, you're less likely to do so. And you know, maybe you become more willing to accept your lot in life, as it were. You know, this is the parameters of who I am and what I do. We get into all sorts of spiritual and philosophical positions on that, but I also like the little wins idea. You know, any little win is good, because the little wins add up to bigger wins in the longer period of time. But
they do. It could be something like a little walk outside. Go for a walk. I do this frequently when I work in the hospitals. Like, there's a lot going on. I'll have 5 minutes downtime and I'll go outside and walk around the perimeter of the hospital. Very little thing, but these little things add up. If your mindset, it's the same as having a mindset of, I will optimize protein every time I eat. Yep. It's like that. So you just have that mindset, and then every small thing you do is just helping your body stay well.
And breathing exercises, just have a sort of a fallback mechanism that you can go into yourself, and that's. But it's not an easy one. It's
not. Modern life.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm quite a lot older than you, Sunil, and I'm still working on it. So don't not
Oh, yeah,
pretend.
there's a lot going on every
Not pre-
single day. But
not
the
pretend.
irony is that, yeah, we are actually so much better off and have less going on than our ancestors, who would probably laugh at us with our stresses, and they'd say we had to deal with world wars, we had a draft, we had poverty, we had like a ration where all we had was like a little bowl to eat for 3 days. But humans, being humans, will always find something to be stressed about. I would like to add a word about social media
Yep,
and what that's doing, because this is absolutely huge. And I've seen some very intelligent people get sucked into that vortex.
certainly.
This is personally, and I've talked about this before with you, I'm a huge fan of Stoicism as a philosophy of life, like distinguish between what's in your control and what's not. But be very careful with social media algorithms, because they're very clever. They want you on their platforms, and they will keep throwing you what they know pushes your buttons. And if you're wasting time on that, I would highly suggest taking a step back and probably not looking at the news for more than 5 minutes a day. Definitely not getting sucked into online debates. It is a complete waste of your precious time.
Yep. Fourth one. Are we going to be talking about sleep, or do you have a different
Wow.
fourth one?
No, we're going to be talking about people having the ability to read other people's minds,
Oh,
because
go
that's
on.
what you just did. Yeah. No,
Is it-
that's what you just did, John.
Oh, okay.
It's sleep. Yeah.
Right. No, I was thinking
Yeah,
sleep
that
might
was
be the next one. Right.
fantastic.
No, it was just it's just a guess. But go on, please.
That's great. Well,
I mean, I am the worst for sleep hygiene. I'm appalling. I will think, oh, I'll just do a bit of video work, and of course this is on a screen. It's probably 10 o'clock at night. Or I'm not ready for bed yet. I'll just watch a YouTube video, and you end up looking at a screen till 12 o'clock at night, and then you wonder why you're not tired. I'm so bad. Tell me how you deal with it though.
Yes, sleep is an area where many people also fall behind who are doing other
Yeah.
things right.
Yeah.
We've seen studies with shift workers who work at night. Sleep it should absolutely be non-negotiable
Yeah.
as well. I think this is easier to sort of to be insistent upon rather than stress, for example, where there's external factors. You can carve out time and say, I will sleep every night. If you can't sleep every night, at least 5 nights a week, you need to be sleeping. Optimal amount for most people is somewhere between 6.5 to 8 hours. And sleep is really when your body regenerates, it heals itself, replenishes. And we've all had an experience where we've been sleep deprived,
Yeah.
and then we have the most amazing night's sleep, and we just feel so good afterwards.
Yeah,
and that's
you
our
really
body
do.
telling us, thank you
Yeah,
for giving me a rest.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
need to make that non-negotiable. So
Yeah.
good sleep hygiene, don't eat or drink too late, have
That's-
a winding down
Yeah,
routine.
that's important. Yeah. Late
Yeah.
night
A lot of
snacking.
people eat and alcohol as well. Now, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination someone who says no alcohol. In fact, moderate alcohol, there's studies that it may even be beneficial. I'm not talking about loads of alcohol, but if you do drink earlier in the evening, not close to when you go to bed. That's important. Be
Yeah.
like our former queen who had a gin and tonic every single afternoon, but didn't drink in the evening because
Right.
yes, it can impair sleep. And don't look at bright screens
Yep.
too late
Yeah.
at night. If you watch something, certainly you can watch, as I actually often do, a show or something else on the screen. Dim the light a little bit. That will help you to sleep better. Make sure the room is cool. A lot of people sleep with the room too hot, and
Yes.
that's not good. Waking up at night too warm.
Yeah, and I find an eye patch helps as well because it stops me waking up early in the morning. It actually makes quite a big difference. Or if you've got a room that's actually very dark. I mean, sometimes I'll go away and stay in a hotel or something, and it's a very dark room, and I'll wake up and be amazed how late it is, because I've you're in a blacked out room. I think that's quite important. Sleep hygiene. Yeah. My weaknesses are faffing on with electronics at night, eating after tea time. Don't drink as much as I did, but it certainly has been a problem at various times, and they all add up and they really mess up your sleep.
And you've said the best thing of all there, John, is that you have that self-awareness. So you already know where you fall down, and that is the first step. And you can easily, if you're not perfect, none of us are perfect, you could say, okay, well, I'll work on this, I'll do this, and it quickly adds up, as we've already alluded to.
Yeah. And every time you fall down, get up, dust yourself off and start again, because we're all going to get it wrong. And with all these things, we're all going to mess up on our diet. We're going to mess up on our lack of movement. We're going to mess up on our stress. We're going to mess up on our sleep. But the body's got amazing powers of healing and regeneration. We can recover from these things.
It has, yeah, that's very well said. It's our temple at the end of the day. It's all we've got. And I view this very much as a spiritual journey as well.
Because I've got spiritual as number 5. I mean, arguably you could put spiritual at number 1, but tell us what your thinking is.
Yeah, so spirituality, I mean, it goes with mindset as well and how you're feeling in general. But I actually think, and I've made videos on this before, that what we've seen with the metabolic health catastrophe over the last 10 to 20 years in particular, especially in young people, is a spiritual crisis. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about religion or God. Personally, I believe in God, and that's one reason I think it's the biggest thing you can do is to take good care of a gift you've been given from God, which is your body.
Amen.
That's how I view this. But even outside of religion or even belief in a God, you can say that when people are feeling well and good about themselves, usually the first thing they want to do is take good care of themselves and, if I may use the term, look good. And that is why I am so very concerned, and I don't think enough people are talking about this. Go out now. This is everywhere all around us. How many people under the age of 25 have obviously completely lost control of their health? They are being medicated with all sorts of medications, including antidepressants. They are addicted to screens. They're not moving around too much. And this is the biggest red flag of all that I see for our future as a society. I don't think I'm exaggerating by any stretch of the imagination, but John, can you imagine what this is going to be in 10 years' time when all these people who are 21, 22 are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, heart disease? I mean, catastrophe is not even a strong enough word, but I would really say that it's not the food. I know a lot of people online think, oh, let's blame food corporations. Yes, food corporations are terrible. I don't disagree with that. But I don't think that the food environment has changed a lot in the last 20 years. Certainly in the US where I am, we had terrible processed foods. It's also a cultural shift that has happened in certain countries, not all countries, where young people kind of feel lost. They haven't got good role models. They're addicted to their screens, social media, and they don't have that sense of community and purpose anymore. And when that happens, when young people are losing hope, and young people, let's be quite honest, John, should be in the prime of their lives. They should be saying, I want to look good. This is really important to me to be healthy. But we've lost that. Something really bad has gone on spiritually. And I can't say what the solution is because I think this is very complicated, but I can diagnose the problem.
In essence, you could argue that all the previous points we've talked about, the bad diet, the lack of movement, the stress, the poor sleep hygiene, are all symptoms of this fundamental human spiritual problem.
Indeed,
you could argue that. Yeah, I've got a sixth one, Sunil. See what you think. And I think you've actually already covered it, really, to an extent. But being with others and helping others in the same room, on the same walk, on the same drive, not as we are now, although I'm thoroughly enjoying the interaction, which saves a transatlantic flight. But today you'll be interacting with people. You'll be with your wife, you'll be with friends. Same for me. I'll be interacting with other live human beings, and without being at all disrespectful, we'll be touching other human beings. There's a reason why we shake hands. Social interactions, and what I think is what helps me massively is in fact I probably go so far in this I find it difficult to accept help myself, but helping other people, being useful, having a sense of purpose. So, and there's always things that you can do. I tell you what you could do. You could go out and you could talk to someone nicely. You could be polite. You could say hello. You could ask someone how they are, but not in a perfunctory way, in a genuine way. You can look around for local clubs. There might be meal clubs that you can work in. There might be some cleaning working, anything that you can do that helps other people, because that is good for other people, but it's also really, really good for the individual. That's what I found. Do you find that?
John, I was listening there in awe. That should be a sermon, actually. What you've said there hit so many nails on the head. Indeed, I mean, we are, in my opinion, we are supposed to be creatures of purpose.
Yeah.
And it should all be about helping others. What are you bringing to others around you? That should be the very meaning of life. We're not living individually. And everything that I've talked about so far, no matter what your age, whether it's diet, exercise, stress, sleep, as you've alluded to, that can only really happen if people are motivated to do so. That's why I'm calling for a huge cultural change here in how we approach this. But it is no surprise whatsoever that the catastrophe that we are witnessing at all ages, but especially again focusing on young people.
And it is a catastrophe. We are witnessing a metabolic catastrophe, and catastrophes in many ways. This is not overstatement. This is an objective evaluation of the situation.
Oh, it's unprecedented, John. Yeah, I mean, give it 10 years. What's about to happen? I think every doctor should wake up in a cold sweat over this. But I don't think it's any accident that this has coincided with the rise of social media and screens, because for the first time ever, you have young people who can essentially live a life all on their own. They can sit at home, be on a screen, they can order food. They don't even need to interact with people anymore. I don't think that a lot of the time parents are also, I mean, we have to be honest, parents are addicted to their screens as well. We're in uncharted territory. This has never happened before. So every single week we're learning something new. It's just absolutely awful. In my opinion, the medical establishment should be all in on this. Metabolic health should be the first thing they think about. Because these are all, anything I've said is not revolutionary. It's been known for thousands of years. Hippocrates talked about food as medicine, and every single religious text in history, John, has talked about moderation. What are 3 of the 7 deadly sins? Sloth, gluttony, and what's the other one? Greed. Sloth, greed, gluttony. And when you have a society that forgets these basic fundamentals, again, I want to approach this with empathy. Bad things are going to happen. There's no way around this. I think this whole weight loss injection craze is beyond stupid and also dangerous, because you're trying to fix, as the pharmaceutical and medical establishment thinks, they're trying to fix a lifestyle problem with a pill or an injection, and you can't do that. You can't have these quick fixes. And I'll say one final thing in the spiritual realm. I personally believe, this is just my personal belief, I believe that God put us here to be the best possible version of ourselves, to serve others, and to work hard, reap what we sow. You can't bypass these rules. They are laws of the universe, as far as I'm concerned. You cannot inject your way to good health. You have to work hard. You have to treat your body well.
If the manufacturer says this car runs best on petrol, and I say, no, it runs best on diesel, I know best, and you put diesel in it, you'll soon find out your car doesn't run very well. And I think everyone would agree with that. We're here to try and be the best version of ourselves. We're created for a purpose. And I know actually from interacting with my comments that 90% of people watching will agree with that. And to me, it's just a sort of completely self-obvious truth. I maybe got a 7th. See what you think, Sunil. I'm just wondering, we have a word called iatrogenesis, don't we?
Yes.
Iatros is Greek for doctor. Doctors can cause problems. Is this something you've got any views on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, with regards to the metabolic health catastrophe, I think it doesn't help if doctors are not invested in this. We've talked about how they don't diagnose insulin resistance. I know doctors are overwhelmed. I know doctors are working in a terrible system, whatever country we're talking about, USA or UK. But the medical profession absolutely is not even remotely invested in this. Like, I'll give you an example. They will say the odd line to patients for 2 seconds, oh, maybe you should exercise more, and leave it at that. And then it'll be straight to the prescription. there isn't an emphasis on this. And the problem is, we've already mentioned weight loss injections. We're throwing medications that for high blood pressure, cholesterol, other inflammation, and all of these medications where we're talking about a lifestyle illness are just band-aids. Again, we'll use that example of a dam bursting where you are just waiting and waiting. You're putting little filler on it, but it's just waiting to burst, and you never touch the upstream problem. That's the problem with the whole medical paradigm, and that is why every single year, John, what happens? Rates of prescriptions go up, illnesses go up. There isn't one single illness out there, whether we're talking about heart disease, depression, high blood pressure, where once the pharmaceutical industry gets involved, the rates of that illness and prescriptions haven't skyrocketed. I'm not saying you don't need the prescriptions. Clearly, of course, they play a role, but our whole philosophy is wrong. And what I grapple with on a daily basis is, how do you fix a system where collectively the minds of doctors are broken? I mean, what I've talked about today seems really obvious to me. It seems very obvious that this is what we should be focusing on. But often when I speak to doctors about this, I'll get like this blank stare, like they don't understand it, or they don't think it's their job to do it. Their job is just to fix things temporarily and move on to the next patient. Do you have any thoughts, John, about how we can possibly fix this?
I mean, I think videos like this are an important step in that process, because I think there's actually a groundswell, not necessarily amongst professionals, but amongst ordinary people, ordinary viewers, or people like me and you and the viewers, who are rejecting that and realise that it's not a quick fix. And I think if there's this groundswell of opinion, eventually the medical establishment, if you like, will have to start listening to that. But the thing that really, in my mind, is the block is that a lot of people are making a lot of money from the status quo. A lot of people are making a lot of money from medicines. Now, of course, you need medicines when, you sometimes you need them. They're life-saving. I've given medicines that have saved people's lives. I've taken medicines that have probably arguably saved my life in terms of antibiotics. So sometimes it's necessary. But we have this whole establishment that is somewhat against everything, the whole principles we've talked about in this video, and unpicking that is difficult. So I think it's a combination of bottom up, where the groundswell, the crowd is demanding change, but also I think we need top down change, where there's control at the political level, where vested interests are controlled and moderated. So I think we need this top down and bottom up approach. The top down political approach is really quite hard, and as individuals we can't do that. But every individual who's watching this, and if you've got to this stage, well done. Go out, make those small choices we've been talking about, and they'll accumulate into the bigger choices, into the bigger lifestyle factors, and you will get the benefit from that.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. It's all about everybody making their own decisions and doing everything for themselves. And I know, again, this runs counter to modern mainstream culture, because sadly, for the last 20 years, everything has to have an external cause. And this is the very basic fundamental problem that we have, is that nothing... I'll give you an example. The current administration in the United States, which I think is doing a lot of good things finally, I believe that they are focused on things which are rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Like they're working with food corporations to change a couple of ingredients here and there, like removing food dyes. Okay, I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. I think that's good. But the problem is the food is already complete crap anyway. And they've changed one ingredient in food, which is horrible. A few days ago, I actually saw a post from, it may have even been from RFK Jr. himself, and I'm a supporter, but I'm also somebody who always tells the truth and will always be critical of anybody, no matter what side of the aisle they're on. RFK Jr., for all the good things that he's trying to do and raise awareness of, put out a post about how they were really focusing on healthier kids, and they were talking about trying to push for better food in schools and trying to push for kids to move more. but they kind of skirted around the main issue, which is, of course, kids are horribly out of shape now. And I'm not suggesting you put that into words, but this is an example of how modern mainstream culture always doesn't want to just direct things head on. Like he could have easily put out a post describing why it's dangerous to be out of shape, what it means scientifically for the body. But the whole post was kind of like going around that issue. Yeah, move a bit more, eat a bit. Why don't you just get to the point? And to me, that's a duty of the medical profession, to tell the truth empathetically, compassionately, but don't skirt around it. Don't worry about political correctness. Tell people the truth. There is a huge faction in society, and I can use a W word if you like, who think that it's a bigger crime. And I want you to really think about this, and everybody watching, they think in their minds it is a bigger crime to fat shame somebody than it is for that person to die of a heart attack from advanced diabetes age 35.
I had a friend who died in his mid-late 40s who was incredibly overweight, and after his funeral I thought, I failed that guy. You know, okay, we've got some things wrong over the years, but you know, we've always known that the significant obesity is a big risk factor, and I thought I should have been more challenging. Now, this is a guy I considered a friend, and I didn't challenge him, and he died. And after that, I decided that's not going to happen again. I'm going to challenge people, and if that makes me a bit unpopular, or that's kind of okay, really. If that makes me a bit impolite, and of course you say things in the most sensitive way you can, but people have to get the message. And if people interpret that as me being a bit impolite, then I'd prefer to have that on my conscience than a death, to be quite honest. We need to challenge people much more than we are. If someone's eating inappropriately, we need to tell them. If someone's clinically unfit, we need to tell them. If someone's severely overweight, we need to tell them. I mean, they're going to know this already, perhaps, but, you know, I think we have to be honest about it. If someone's not moving enough, if they're stressed, if there's a sleep problem, if there's a spiritual problem, if they're not helping others, if they're taking the wrong treatments, let's talk about it. What is our role if it's not to bring some... I don't want to be arrogant about it, but we understand certain scientific medical principles, and we need, but they're no good unless we operationalise them. And a big part of that is communicating it. And I think we're perhaps... Even now, I think I'm still too shy to talk about it, and I'm probably more forthright than most people I know. Let's get out there and help people's health. Otherwise, why be in the health and healing lines of work?
Exactly. You're a good person, John. I mean, look back to the 1970s to 1990s even. People did that. You can even look at TV shows where it was frowned upon. We've had a huge cultural change.
We have.
And it's so funny how this hasn't happened in certain other cultures. It hasn't happened in France or Italy. It's happened in this sort of Anglo-American culture. Ireland follows, Australia follows. That's why I say it's a cultural phenomenon more than anything else. But if it isn't the duty of someone in healthcare to be honest and do so in a compassionate way, then what's the point of being a doctor if you let somebody's health fail? That's total neglect. And yes, I accept that a lot of people won't listen, but at least you tried. And we shouldn't underestimate, if you keep pushing something, this happened with smoking, eventually a fair percentage of people do listen. I mean, look at what happened during the pandemic. The medical establishment made people lock down for basically no reason by telling them to do so. So I'm convinced they could get people to make healthier choices.
Compassionate counterculturalism. I think that's the new approach we've just coined.
Exactly. And we shouldn't forget it's like an avalanche as well of behaviors. This is also something which is not talked about enough, but human beings mirror the behavior of people around them. And this is a social phenomenon as well. If everybody's overweight, eating unhealthy, a lot of humans will be just do what people are doing around them. We've all heard the phrase, monkey see, monkey do. But it is true. If you look at patterns of human behavior and psychology, people do what everybody else around them is doing. This is why when a lot of people go in a certain direction with their health, it quickly turns into an avalanche. So let's hope we can get the avalanche moving in the other direction.
Absolutely. So remember, you are a unique created individual. Whether you believe you were created by God or whether you believe you were created by an evolutionary process doesn't matter too much. You are unique. And this body is what you have. Optimize it, make the best of it, and use that to help other people, and that will help yourself. As always, Sunil, I didn't think this one would last very long. We're actually on 1 hour.
Wow. Okay. Good amount of information for everybody to digest. No pun intended. Good digestion.
None at all. As always, Sunil, thank you so much. Wonderful insights and great discussion. And I know you are reaching a lot of people. So you're doing a good job. Keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Wonderful to join you.
You too.